Hello everyone, my name is Kevin and I am an exercise specialist. I'm here to facilitate today's workshop, which is provided to you by the Edmonton Primary Care Networks. So as part of the medical home concept of care through a family physician and the interdisciplinary services provided through the Edmonton Primary Care Networks, welcome to Active Living for Everyone. So I just want to start off with a video to explain this concept.
Welcome to your medical home. When you walk through our door, we get to the heart of all your healthcare needs. Your family physician is the key to your medical home and knows you best. As a member of a primary care network in Alberta, your family physician can access a dedicated team of health professionals who together can provide you with the care you need through every stage of your life. Your medical home is where you can get reliable care you can trust at any time of the day, including accessing after-hours care without having to visit the emergency department. Your medical home is also where registered nurses, pharmacists, mental health professionals, dietitians, and other health professionals work with you to keep you living your healthiest life. By managing chronic disease and offering continuous care through your family physician, with links to specialists, hospital procedures, and treatments, providing earlier detection of disease and improving access to the care you need when you need it. So welcome home. We're glad you joined us.
This workshop today is part of that medical home, so thank you for coming today. And now I'd like to get started with the active living workshop. So today we're going to talk about the difference between active living and exercise. And then we'll get into benefits of physical activity, risks of physical activity just to make sure it's safe for you, barriers, what's stopping you or getting in your way, physical activity guidelines and what are the recommendations. So we'll kind of go into what it's recommended that we're getting for health benefits. Pedometers, how can we get started with using those, and then goal setting, how to make an activity plan, as well as how to maintain in the long run. So that is today's agenda. So as for active living versus exercise, has anyone ever really thought about the concept of active living or philosophy? What does it mean to you? So active living basically refers to every movement that you have from when you wake up in the morning to when you go to bed at night. It could be getting up, walking to the bathroom, going to make breakfast, walk to your car, drive wherever you're going, then wherever you get out. If you're going to the grocery store, you got to walk around the grocery store. All that movement is active living. So active living is about finding a way to be active every day. It's not something temporary or something that someone does every once in a while. Active living is super important because we have engineered physical activity out of our lives. So if you kind of think about it, you know, where we are in 2020 now that I'm doing this recording, just, you know, you have remote controls. It's very easy to stay indoors. Netflix, TVs become a pretty incredible thing. And entertainment value of what is presented makes it super easy to stay inside and not go outside and not really do stuff. So active living is more about moving back towards more of a pre-technological time when we would actually move more from when we woke up to when we went to bed. We were generally not required to do as much physical work in the past due to advances in technology that resulted in labor-saving equipment. We need to put physical activity back in. So no one's going to go back in time to a day when every task was much more physically taxing. So we need to find ways to incorporate physical activity into our day, as well as finding opportunities to move more and sit less. So we're going to talk about how much sitting we're doing briefly, but I like to use this presentation. I find it kind of ironic to be sitting and watching an active living presentation, so I'll stand up with you. So I'll ask everybody watching to stand up right now and just, you know, watch the next slide or two just standing up. You can feel free to walk back and forth on your feet, but the first little bit is about how bad sitting is for us, so let's not sit for that period. Really, overall, it's about a lifestyle change. So, if take the stairs instead of the elevator one time, one day in your life, that's not really going to make a difference. What's going to make a difference is the cumulative benefit of several different changes that you do every day. That's what will make an overall difference in your health, and that's why we refer to it as lifestyle change. So, active living versus exercise. So, just kind of outlining what's the difference between the two. I like to usually put think of it as a Venn diagram. There's a bit of a crossover between the two. But active living would be things like gardening, shoveling, maybe cleaning up your house. A lot of people tell me they get sweaty when they're cleaning up their house, so it's obviously pretty taxing for them. And doing the laundry. So those are just things you do throughout your day that are movement, that are good, that aren't quite fully automated yet. But I guess if we think back, laundry is something we had to work a whole lot harder for back in the day. But all these ways are ways of moving throughout the day that are not, I don't think, classified as exercise. Exercise would be like going for a walk, more so with the intention of I'm going out to take X amount of time, and I'm going to go this fast so that I can get these benefits. That's more what I kind of classify exercise as. So going for a walk, lifting some weights, whether that's using elastics or free weights, or body weight training, maybe going for a bike ride or riding an indoor bike or doing a Zumba class. There's lots of different ways to exercise, but generally this is for the intention of physically kind of exerting yourself. So I like to, when I teach this class in person, I outline this example. So we're going to talk about two different people. One is a sedentary office worker, and then the other one is an electrician. So let's just look at what their day really looks like. So let's call the sedentary office worker Bob. So let's say Bob is sleeping, and then he wakes up, makes breakfast, walks to his car, and then he's got about a 45-minute drive to work. So he's sitting in his car for all of that. And then from there, he's got to walk into his office, and then he sits back down, and he starts working on his computer. Maybe he goes for a quick pee break, and then go grab a coffee, something like that, sit back down, walk to the lunchroom, sit for lunchtime, walk back to his desk, sit for the afternoon. Maybe he, has a meeting, so he's got to walk to his meeting room, sits down for the meeting, and then walks back to his desk. Maybe go to the bathroom really quickly, sit for the rest of the afternoon, walk to his car, drive 30 to 45 minutes, walk in from the car, make dinner, and then he's tired at the end of the day, so sit down and watch Netflix for the remainder of the evening. On average, Bob would get, or your average sedentary office worker, somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 steps in a day. So this is obviously not a very active day. When we talk about active living, it's got a bunch of little breaks throughout the day, but on average, it's pretty low intensity every time he goes and does something. And there's a really large portion of the day. These should actually be probably a lot smaller. And he's spending probably 15 hours of his waking time sitting in a chair. You can sit back down now if you want to, if you haven't already done that. So now let's talk about the electrician. So let's say the electrician's name is Megan. So Megan is also sleeping at nighttime, wakes up, makes breakfast, and then she's also got a 30 to 45 minute drive to work. But once she gets to work, she's basically walking around pretty constantly, climbing ladders, walking from one side of the site to the other, sits down for lunch, gets back up, and is basically walking around all afternoon, and then sits back down. I've talked to several electricians, I did that too early. I've talked to several electricians, and generally this is, they're on their feet all day. They sit down for lunch, but other than that, they're walking around. And then she's got a 30 to 45 minute drive home, and then cooks dinner, walks in from her car, and then also sits and watches Netflix for the rest of the day. So An average electrician of the ones that I've talked to get on average about 20,000 steps per day. So this is a very significant difference. And the point I'm trying to make here is that neither one of them have exercised yet. So Megan obviously has a much more active job than Bob, and therefore it shows in how many steps per day that she would be getting. So this is kind of just relating to more sedentary jobs are kind of coming around with the invention of computers and just becoming easier and easier to sit all day. So more of these people are transitioning from these types of jobs to these types of jobs, which is creating a great decline in physical activity, which is causing a great increase in health problems. So what exercise would look like on this graph? I will erase Megan. Oh, okay, I can erase them all. Let's go back to Bob. So Bob has his day, etc., is sitting for most of the day, as I already pointed out. And then let's say Bob realizes that he's very, very sedentary, so he goes to the gym on the way home from work and then sits for the rest of the afternoon or evening. So exercise would look like that. It's a whole bunch of steps that you get in a pretty short period of time, and it's typically higher intensity. But on this graph, he would be getting a whole bunch of steps during that period, probably turn his 3,500 into like maybe 6,500 or something like that. So get a decent amount of steps, but doubled his physical activity with 30 minutes of movement during that time. So this is just another graph kind of showing the same thing. Let's stand up again for this graph if you don't mind. So stand up, step back and forth, and then I'll tell you, stand for as long as you want to, but then just sit back down when you need to. So we're going to start with bedtime here. So, I guess, okay, well, this person's starting their day with a brisk walk for 30 minutes, and then a 1 hour drive to work, and then walk in, and they're going to work on the computer for 4 hours. They're sitting, eating lunch for 30 minutes, back to the computer with an excellent posture there. Probably going to have some bad neck and lower back pain, something like that. And then walk to the car, drive home for an hour, did some strength training, so that's great. So this person actually got in 30 minutes of exercise in a day, ate dinner, and then watched TV or read for the rest of the night, and then went to bed. So this person even had an hour of exercise in, and they still sat for 15 hours of what I would assume about 16 to 17 hours of their day. So that's obviously a very, very significant number. And we need to start to think about how can we break these things up so that we're not sitting for so much throughout the day. Because sitting has been kind of, I guess, touted as the new smoking. There's a ton of negative benefits from sitting for more than about 20 or 30 minutes. So that's what I'm encouraging people to do more of. Okay, so this is a great video about sitting. I guess I'll let the video talk about it, and we will get into it after.
Right now, you're probably sitting down to watch this video, and staying seated for a few minutes to view it is probably okay. But the longer you stay put, the more agitated your body becomes. It sits there counting down the moments until you stand up again and take it for a walk. That may sound ridiculous. Our bodies love to sit, right? Not really. Sure, sitting for brief periods can help us recover from stress or recuperate from exercise. But nowadays, our lifestyles make us sit much more than we move around, and our bodies simply aren't built for such a sedentary existence. In fact, just the opposite is true. The human body is built to move, and you can see evidence of that in the way it's structured. Inside us are over 360 joints and about 700 skeletal muscles that enable easy, fluid motion. The body's unique physical structure gives us the ability to stand up straight against the pull of gravity. Our blood depends on us moving around to be able to circulate properly. Our nerve cells benefit from movement, and our skin is elastic, meaning it molds to our motions. So if every inch of the body is ready and waiting for you to move, what happens when you just don't? Let's start with the backbone of the problem, literally. Your spine is a long structure made of bones and the cartilage discs that sit between them. Joints, muscles, and ligaments that are attached to the bones hold it all together. A common way of sitting is with a curved back and slumped shoulders, a position that puts uneven pressure on your spine. Over time, this causes wear and tear in your spinal discs, overworks certain ligaments and joints, and puts strain on muscles that stretch to accommodate your back's curved position. This hunched shape also shrinks your chest cavity while you sit, meaning your lungs have less space to expand into when you breathe. That's a problem because it temporarily limits the amount of oxygen that fills your lungs and filters into your blood. Around the skeleton are the muscles, nerves, arteries, and veins that form the body's soft tissue layers. The very act of sitting squashes, pressurizes, and compresses, and these more delicate tissues really feel the brunt. Have you ever experienced numbness and swelling in your limbs when you sit? In areas that are the most compressed, your nerves, arteries, and veins can become blocked, which limits nerve signaling, causing the numbness, and reduces blood flow in your limbs, causing them to swell. Sitting for long periods also temporarily deactivates lipoprotein lipase, a special enzyme in the walls of blood capillaries that breaks down fats in the blood. So when you sit, you're not burning fat nearly as well as when you move around. What effect does all of this stasis have on the brain? Most of the time, you probably sit down to use your brain. But ironically, lengthy periods of sitting actually run counter to this goal. Being stationary reduces blood flow and the amount of oxygen entering your bloodstream through your lungs. Your brain requires both of those things to remain alert, so your concentration levels will most likely dip as your brain activity slows. Unfortunately, the ill effects of being seated don't only exist in the short term. Recent studies have found that sitting for long periods is linked with some types of cancers and heart disease, and can contribute to diabetes, kidney, and liver problems. In fact, researchers have worked out that worldwide, inactivity causes about 9% of premature deaths a year. That's over 5 million people. So what seems like such a harmless habit actually has the power to change our health. But luckily, the solutions to this mounting threat are simple and intuitive. When you have no choice but to sit, try switching the slouch for a straighter spine. And when you don't have to be bound to your seat, aim to move around much more, perhaps by setting a reminder to yourself to get up every half hour. But mostly, just appreciate that bodies are built for motion, not for stillness. In fact, since the video's almost over, why not stand up and stretch right now? Treat your body to a walk. It'll thank you later.
So I am very thankful to have the job that I do, because watching videos like this, every time that even I watch them and remind myself, then I stand up as well. Like I don't feel like I can learn this much about how bad sitting is for me while I'm sitting. So a lot of the books that I read, I feel like I have to read them standing up. But realistically, this is just feeding you some information on thinking twice about how much time do you actually spend sitting during a day, and what different ways can you stand up or walk around or make things harder rather than just sit for periods of time. So maybe just during this week, like spend a week really thinking about how much time are you sitting in your chair. And we have to work towards reducing that if you're going to realize the benefits of good health, or if you want to be healthy. The longer we're sitting for, I like to give an analogy of, I guess this goes back to this pretty well. My analogy of this is, I will give you, let's say, $100 for every hour that you exercise. So you get $100 for an hour's worth of exercise. That's awesome, right? But you have to pay me $10 for every hour that you sit. So this person would end up owing me $50 by the end of the day. And that's kind of how I want you to think about sitting versus exercise. Exercise is great for getting a lot of physical activity benefits, but realize that every hour you're sitting, you're taking away from those. It's like a negative impact against your health. So that's one of my favorite analogies. I'm going to do one more video here. So I'll encourage you to stand back up again and watch this one. This is a pretty, I think it's about 3 or 4 minutes, but it gets into like what strategies can we use to be more physically active throughout the day.
Dr. Mike Evans. Usually I'm talking about the science behind best health, but today I want to start a movement called Let's Make Our Day Harder. I know that sounds counterintuitive. In fact, usually I'm asking, how can I make it easier to do the right thing? But let me explain. A recent review in JAMA Internal Medicine compared the health of baby boomers to previous generations. It showed what you might expect. Medical advances have led to longer life expectancies. But it also shows something else. U.S. baby boomers have more chronic disease, more obesity, and lower self-rated health than members of the previous generation at the same age, even though we smoke less and work out more than the Mad Men generation. So what's the difference? Well, I think for a variety of reasons that include technology, culture, and attitudes, we have a severe generational case of sitting disease. We watch phones, tablets, and TVs. We stare at computers while we work and pride ourselves on not moving for 4 hours straight. We don't walk to a friend's house or a coworker's office. We text them. I text my kids in my own house. Don't get me wrong, I love technology. There's lots of good to be had, but I also think we need to be mindful that as technology becomes more ubiquitous, it can loot the medicine chest of our single best treatment for good health, being active, moving. We shop on the internet instead of walking to the store. We have vacuums that automatically circulate so we don't have to. Electric toothbrushes so we don't have to move our hands up and down. With the push of a button, we can manipulate the TV, the music, the temperature. We might even choose our house based on these conveniences or on the size of the TV room or garage, not walkability. Living further away gets you a bigger house, but it can also mean another half-hour a day of sitting in your car. To compare ourselves to the recent low-tech, simpler past, let's look at the Amish. The average Amish dude walks 18,000 steps a day. The average Amish woman, 15,000. American men walk 7,200 steps a day and women 5,200. In Canada, we're a bit better, and I actually find these numbers a bit high, but 2009 data show 9,500 steps per day for men and 8,400 for women. Unfortunately, this drops by about 1,500 steps a day once we hit 60. I think it's time to change our prevailing attitude. Maybe easier isn't really better after all. So how's about you and I start a movement, an anti-pushing the button so the door opens automatically for us movement. I'm not talking about extra stuff like going to the gym or running. If you do that, it's great. I'm talking about the health gold of our daily habits, what I call tweak the week. It's about looking at your week and seeing where you can make it harder by taking the stairs or riding your bike or getting off a stop early on your daily commute. Have a walking meeting instead of sitting in a conference room. I had a 90-year-old patient tell me the other day that he gets off 2 floors above his floor. When I asked him why, he said, well, I can't go up the stairs too well anymore, but I can still go down. Can you flip technology and use your phone or other wearable to monitor and remind you to move or stand more? How about going for a walk at lunch instead of just going somewhere else to sit? Can you reframe buying a push mower or a rake or a snow shovel as an opportunity? Instead of driving around the parking lot for 10 minutes trying to find that spot that's 10 feet closer, can you just park farther away in that spot reserved for people who want to live longer and have a higher quality of life? Let's rethink this a bit. Let's you and I and our loved ones and our coworkers and our friends, let's all mix in a little low-tech into our high-tech. Let's do something that's totally in our control. Let's make our day harder.
So that was just another awesome video. I think that's one of my favorite videos as well, about reframing. Like, I really like his words. Can you reframe buying a push more? Or like, we need to find ways to make our day harder, because there's so many things that are engineering physical activity out of our lives, and if we continue down this path, then basically our bodies just become weaker and weaker and weaker. And then when we actually need to use them, we don't really have the strength there. So one of my favorite quotes I kind of live by is, do what is hard and your life will be easy. If you do what is easy, your life will be hard. So basically this is kind of from a physical perspective, this is tying into if you always choose the easy route and have someone else move for you and have someone else shovel your walks, and you never actually physically challenge your body's going to break down and it's not going to be very strong. that's going to tie into how do you move around your house. When you need to climb stairs to get into our doctor's office, are you able to? If you install a lift on your staircase and you never practice stairs, then when you run into stairs in the real world, you're gonna have a big challenge with them. So you kind of need to choose the difficult option in order to have better health. So next I want to talk about the benefits of physical activity. So why is this important to you? I think if you don't know what the benefits of physical activity are, then kind of no wonder you're not going to be motivated to do it. So that's been a little bit of the reason why I've shown you so many videos to get started with, is to start to get you guys thinking about the negative effects of sitting, and then now I want to talk about the positive effects of being more active. So in the short term, feel better right away. Usually if I ask someone how you feel after a 5 to 10 minute walk, or maybe after an exercise session, usually they feel a whole lot better than they would have if they're just sitting in a chair looking at a computer screen. Less aches and pains. I like to compare this one to driving 3 to 5 hours in your car. When you drive around and you get out of your car, usually the body's really stiff. So the body is made to move. The more it moves, the less achy and painful it generally feels. Think better. So ironically, in that video I showed you earlier, people sit to think, but realistically what we now know is the more people move, the better they think, because there's more blood flow going through their brain in terms of oxygen, glucose, and getting rid of metabolic waste in their brain. Sleep better. If I paint a picture of basically if someone sits on their couch and watches TV all day and never really physically exerts themselves, how good do you think that person sleeps at night versus imagine like the last time you went to Disneyland, or you helped a friend move, or you had just had a super active day? How good do you sleep that night? So generally people who are more active have a better quality and quantity of sleep at nighttime. Feel more relaxed. It can help bust stress. More energy. I'll kind of talk through this on the next slide, why people feel like they have more energy the more active they are. And then generally just a happier mood. So one of my favorite statements a patient told me after one of our exercise programs was her family said that she was just a lot less snippy when she was exercising. So she was just a lot, I guess, less irritable would be what she means by snippy. And generally it was just a happier mood when she was exercising. Within a couple weeks, you can expect to build some muscle mass, so you'll start to get a little stronger, feel like things start to feel easier. Improve your balance, so those who are more, like people who are more active generally have better balance, and people who are less active generally have worse balance. Increase abilities, I like to say you can do more stuff. So if you're physically active and physically fit, you can do, you can shovel your own walks, you can mow your own grass, maybe you can go for a hike in the mountains, where if you're physically unfit, you just cannot do these things. Slow aging decline, we'll talk about that on the next slide. And within a couple months, you can start to prevent new problems. So the cumulative benefit of, I like to say, if I go back to my earlier analogy of I'll pay you for exercise, but you have to pay me for how much you're sitting. If you have a positive number at the end of the day and you're making money, then that money that you're going to make is basically preventing the onset of, let's say, diabetes or arthritis or high blood pressure. As the same thing, if you already have those conditions, one of the benefits is it will help that current condition. I'll talk a little bit more about this in 2 slides from now. Enjoy more quality of life. So more or less, quality of life just kind of stinks if you are not able to get around. Like if it was a really big challenge to get out of your chair and to walk to the bathroom, quality of life is probably not as high as it would be as if that was a breeze for you and you could get up and you could go watch your grandson's hockey game, and you could go for a walk in the mountains in the fall and see the leaves. So I really believe higher physical fitness leads to a better quality of life. And then finally, maintain independence. So this will be on the next slide as well, but if you're not physically fit enough to be independent, then you will be dependent on someone else basically to take care of you. So I do believe that you need to be physically fit enough to do so. Okay, so this is one of my favorite slides. This explains the principle of physical fitness quite well and why it's really important. And I'm going to tie it back into the last slide. So first of all, we'll talk about activities of daily living, like doing the laundry. So I guess let me explain exercise capacity first. So what exercise capacity is us exercise specialists have the certification to put people through a exercise stress test. So basically with this test, what we would do, maybe if you've had a heart attack or something in the past, you can relate, you might have had this test. It's called cardiac stress test. But basically we put you on a treadmill for the first 0 to 3 minutes. You're going up a 10% incline on a treadmill at a 1.7 mile per hour walk. So that's like a slow walk at a quite a steep hill. If you're able to do that for 3 minutes and you're like, yeah, bring on more, I can handle it, then we're going to turn up the incline to 12% incline and a 2.4 mile per hour walk. Do not try this at home, by the way. This is intended to be supervised by a cardiologist if you have any conditions. So please don't try this on your own at home. It is definitely intended to be supervised. So if you can handle that 2.4 mile an hour walk in a 12% grade, then we are going to turn it up even higher for 6 to 9 minutes, steeper and faster. And then if you last 9 minutes, we're going to make it steeper and faster all the way up until you say stop. So whenever you say stop, that is your capacity for exercise. So basically, the more fit you are, let's say Bob lasted 6 minutes on this test, and we'll talk about other people after. So let's say Bob lasted 6 minutes on this test. When Bob goes to do the laundry, the reason this line is red is because the laundry is the equivalent of basically level 1 of this test. So what we say is the energy cost of doing the laundry is similar to a 3 on this test. If Bob's capacity is a 6, then when Bob is doing the laundry, he's working at a 50% exertion level. Okay? Now next, let's talk about Megan. So Megan has a capacity of 12. When we did this test with her, she lasted 12 minutes. When Megan does the laundry, it feels like she's working at 25% of her capacity. So the cost of doing the laundry is the same, but her capacity is higher. So things feel easier to Megan than they do to Bob. And then finally, I like to throw in an athlete. Any athlete, we can throw it in. We'll get somewhere around 20 minutes on this test. So when Connor McDavid does his laundry, he says it feels like 15% of his maximal exertion level. So basically what this is pointing out is the more fit you are, the easier things feel. Okay? So I like to kind of paint a picture. Yes, this line can change. So if Bob realizes, man, I don't feel very good, I would really like to become more fit, I'm going to go to the PCN exercise program. So he starts exercising. He starts exercising, and over time his capacity goes up. So start of the program, he could only go 6 minutes. End of the program, he could go 10 minutes. And he walks in and he's like, Kev, I feel like I have way more energy. And like I feel better. I have more energy throughout the day. I can go for a walk in the mountains now where I couldn't before. All those kind of things. That would be the reason why, is that your capacity for exercise is always changing. And generally throughout your life, what it looks like, let's just delete this here. Generally throughout your life, if we say age is on the bottom here, let me just spell this out super well. There we go. That's not bad actually. So throughout your life, when you are born and you are 0 years old or a month old, if I put you on a treadmill, I'd probably be charged for abuse because you're not going to be able to walk. So as you get older, you can start to walk, and then your physical capacity goes up. And then somewhere around the age of 20 to about 40 or so, you're here. And then as we get older, it starts to decline. So usually at retirement age here, one of two things happen. So let's just say this is like 65 years old. So let's just say someone is very active in their retirement. They join pickleball, they go for a walk every day, they exercise. This is probably what their physical capacity will continue to look like. If when you retire, you decide, hey, like I earned this, I worked hard for 35 years, now I want to sit down and enjoy and have my coffee and watch TV and not do a whole lot. Physical activity will go down quite quickly, or physical capacity, and then we'll be about here. So let's just say if both people live this long and then this is when they kick the bucket, let's say it's 80 years old. So physical activity does decline after capacity declines after about 50 years old, but as we can see here, we can maintain the level much better, or if we're very inactive, it will go down. So back to my earlier point of the line of 3 is doing the laundry. So if this person, their quality of life is going to be pretty crappy. In order to do the laundry, they'd be working at a 75% maximal exertion just to do the laundry. Like, it's going to feel like the laundry is a workout every day. So generally what we say is once you get below 6, taking care of yourself throughout the day is too challenging. So as exercise specialists, we really believe that the body will maintain the ability to do stuff if you challenge it. But if you don't challenge it, then it's kind of that if you don't use it, you lose it idea, and then life's a lot more challenging there. So that explains having more energy, why people who are more fit have more energy. Increased abilities, they can do more stuff. Slow aging decline, if you're active, your body breaks down slower. Enjoy more quality of life and maintain independence, because life is not as fun when getting out of the chair is a challenge. You're probably not able to go do those things that you love. So clinically significant benefits. So this is kind of tying back into preventing new problems and or treating current condition. A lot of people really don't like taking medication. I don't know a single person that likes taking medication. If you want to not take medication though, you need to live the lifestyle of a person who does not need to take medication for the most part. There are certain conditions where you need to take a medication, like let's say hypothyroidism, where your body's just not making enough thyroid. No amount of exercise or a healthy lifestyle is going to make you more thyroid. So that's an example of something that you do have to take medication for. But things like lower blood pressure, if you live the lifestyle, very active, low salt diet, good heart healthy diet, you can avoid, or at the very least reduce the amount of medication that you're taking. So as for blood pressure, a 20-minute walk every day will reduce your blood pressure, similar to one medication will. Lower heart rate or demand, so basically your heart is more effective or beats more effectively if you are a regular exerciser. Increased circulation, this is kind of a cool one. Let's just say if you were very inactive and then you're like, oh, I'm going to pick up cycling. So you started cycling. 6 months later, you would have more arteries going through your legs as you did previously 6 months ago. The most important benefit could be in your heart. So if you have a blockage in your heart and you're exercising regularly, your body will actually start to develop collateral arteries to be able to go around the blockage the day that you do have a heart attack or a blockage, if that comes. So yeah, the more active people are, the better chance they have of surviving heart attacks for that reason. Increase HDL and decrease LDL, so I call this happy density lipoprotein. That is your good cholesterol, and decrease lousy density lipoprotein, which is your bad cholesterol. Decrease triglycerides, so in that first video I showed you, there's that protein called lipoprotein lipase, and that is responsible for blasting those triglycerides. So when you sit for more than 30 minutes, that goes down, and therefore your triglycerides go up. So the more active you are, the less triglycerides you have. Reduce total body fat. A significant amount of exercise can help at least maintain your body fat and not increase. Inactivity definitely leads to total body fat gain. Reduce your blood sugar. So activity definitely helps reduce blood sugars. That's one of the main fuels for movement. Reduce blood platelet stickiness. So if you're worried about blood clots, regular exercise is one of your best friends, is that it will reduce the stickiness of your blood. And then finally, my favorite, lower death rate from all-cause mortality. So yes, we all do have a 100% chance of dying someday. What this is intending to say is if we took 1,000 people and say what is their chance of dying in the next 5 years, people who are physically active have a lower chance of dying during that 5-year period than people who are inactive. That's kind of the idea behind that statistic. Risk factors for cardiovascular disease are all of the below, and the benefits, this is just trying to show that the benefits of exercise directly oppose all of the, most of the risk factors for heart disease. This is just a quick picture to get people to understand what is going on with in a heart attack or a stroke. So this is kind of what a normal artery would look like. At some point in your life, there's a little tear in the artery wall. Over time, plaque builds up on top of that tear, which is fatty material. So this is kind of why having high cholesterol, high triglycerides is bad, is because it increases the speed of which this builds up. Once this hole becomes too small, if a clot develops, and the clot gets stuck in that hole, if that happens in your heart, that's a heart attack. Happens in your brain, that's a stroke. So a question I usually get during this slide is, can you reverse the buildup? And like in certain instances, it's been shown that people could reduce, but in general, it takes a ton of work to be able to do that, and it's not even really conclusive that everybody could. So the best thing we can do is just slow the progression of this happening, and the more active and healthy you are, the less quickly this will build up. And then also the less blood clots you'll form if you're regularly active. This one is also one of my favorite slides. I guess I have a whole lot of favorite slides in this presentation, but on the left here is relative risk of cardiovascular disease mortality. So this is the chance of dying due to heart attack or stroke on the left here. And then we have a normal weight person, overweight and obese on the BMI scale. So I'm not a huge BMI scale fan to start with, but that's just what they use to measure this, which actually paints a really good picture. What this is trying to say is that your health is not determined by your weight. So this is kind of an argument against why the BMI scale is not a useful measure when you're only using that. So the yellow line is a fit individual, which is defined as 30 minutes per day of physical activity. The red line would be an unfit individual, someone who's not getting 30 minutes per day of physical activity. Normal weight person who is fit has a pretty low chance. And then the normal person who is unfit has almost 3 times the chance of dying during the term of this study. Overweight person who is fit, a little bit higher than the normal weight person, but still not very high. Overweight person who is unfit, pretty high. And this is the important marker, is the obese person on the BMI scale, but who is fit, actually has a lower chance of dying than the normal weight person who is unfit. So that's a really, really important piece to understand, is that, let's just say if you're in the obese category, you could either, let's say, go on Jenny Craig or Dr. Bernstein or something and do no exercise but lose a bunch of weight. You'll go from here to here. If you just pick up the habit of walking 30 minutes a day, you can go from here to here and actually reduce your chance more than weight loss. although you did not have a reduction. You may not have had a reduction in your body weight. So body weight didn't change, but you did notice a lot of benefits. Prevention versus management. So when a chronic disease develops, a big lifestyle change is needed in order to manage that condition. Oftentimes, if we just do that thing before the disease can be prevented. So if you have diabetes and exercise, then the exercise is helping kind of manage that condition. If you exercise and you don't yet have diabetes, realize that that exercise session is actually helping with prevention. So a lot of people complain in our healthcare system that we don't aim at prevention as much as we do at treatment. But a lot of that, I mean, I consider that my whole job, is that the more active people are, we're preventing a whole bunch of different diseases that people do not yet have. So you very much have that power in your own hands of being able to prevent and manage diseases from coming on with exercise. Okay, one more video, and then I think this is going to be our last video. This one's a little bit longer, so if you've been sitting, let's get everybody to stand up, and let's watch this one together.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Evans, and welcome to this visual lecture I'm calling 23 and a half hours. So I have a big interest in preventive medicine, which can mean a lot of things from, cancer screening to eating more fiber to having a good social network. And I mean that in the old sense of the word. Weighing less, drinking less, smoking less, controlling your blood pressure, cholesterol, and so on and so forth. So all of these things are incredibly important, and I wouldn't want you to minimize your efforts in any one category. But I want to know what comes first. What has the biggest impact? What has the biggest return on investment? What makes the biggest difference to your health? So I did my research, and I found an answer, at least for me, and it's tricky because, all these things are sort of overlapping. But I picked out this intervention, and because of its breadth, it worked for so many different health problems, and that's what I found so cool about it. So just to kind of walk you through a quick list. So this intervention in patients with knee arthritis who receive 1 hour of treatment 3 times a week reduced their rates of pain and disability by 47%. In older patients, it reduced progression to dementia and Alzheimer's by around 50%. For patients at high risk of diabetes and coupled with other lifestyle interventions, it reduced progression to frank diabetes by 58%. Postmenopausal woman who had 4 hours a week of the treatment had a 41% reduction in the risk of hip fracture. It reduced anxiety by 48% in a big meta-analysis. Patients suffering from depression, 30% were relieved with low dose, and that bumped to 47% as we increased the dose. Following over 10,000 Harvard alumni for over 12 years, those that had the intervention had a 23% lower risk of death than those who didn't get the treatment. It's the number one treatment of fatigue, and of course the kind of outcome of choice there, my favorite outcome is quality of life, which is really all of the above and really about making your life better. And this treatment has been shown over and over again to improve quality of life. So the question is, what's the medicine, and what is 23 and a half hours? So the medicine was exercise, mostly walking, so not triathlons. And let me just put it a different way. I think what I'm asking you to do is, if you think about your typical day, so there's 24 hours, and so you might spend most of your day, this varies obviously, but couch surfing, sitting at work, obviously sleeping. And what the evidence that I'm going to show you kind of tells me is the best thing you can do for your health is to spend half an hour being active, maybe an hour, and that if you can do that, you can realize all the benefits I've described in the previous slides. So let's just take a quick walk through some of the literature. So Stephen Blair, he's a professor at the Arnold School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina, and he looked at this in what's called the Aerobic Center Longitudinal Study, which followed over 50,000 men and women over time. And along the left side of this graph is something called attributable fractions, which is a kind of fancy word, but it's the estimate of the number of deaths in a population that would have been avoided if that specific risk factor had been erased. So for example, turning a smoker into a non-smoker or a couch potato into a daily walker. And along the bottom is the typical risk factors. You can see the hypertension is incredibly important and so on and so forth. But the one that kind of applied the most risk was this sort of mysterious CRF, which is cardiorespiratory fitness, which is really low fitness. So low fitness was the strongest predictor of death. And this is important that most of the trials we see, to be honest, are funded by pharma or other companies because they've got a drug for hypertension or high cholesterol or diabetes. And we rarely see fitness thrown into the mix. And so it's nice to see a trial that's not so siloed. Blair's work is interesting. He also did another trial looking at obesity. What he found was, sort of two things. One is obesity and no exercise. That's a very bad combination, and that's where we saw many of the negative consequences of obesity from a health point of view. But if the obese person was active, even if they didn't have the weight loss, but were just active and obese, that was much, much better, and that the exercise ameliorated much of the negative consequences of obesity. So if exercise is a medicine, what's a dose? So when I think of dose, I think of how long, how often, and how intense. I'm going to give you a slightly mixed message, but essentially more activity is better. But I must say the rate of return seems to decline after 20 or 30 minutes a day. So if you're being active less than 150 minutes a week, or more if you're a kid, an hour a day if you're a kid, my flag goes up in the clinic. So my personal take on this is that the literature draws a very broad brush, and so we see big differences when somebody goes from not doing anything to doing something, and after that the return is more granular. So if we took the Nurses' Health Study, women who went from zero activity to just 1 hour a week reduced their heart disease rates by almost half. So you can break it down, so it can be 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes if you want to do 30 minutes of exercise, so it can be broken into 3. Higher intensity, it looks like it's equivalent to less time with lower intensity. But I think obviously the clinical pearl is mostly thinking about your style and habits and your personal cues. So if you're only going to do it if it's pre-booked with friends, I have couples that take a half-hour walk every morning or evening to organize their life. A dog is a great walking coach. The data is showing 67% of dog walkers achieve the 150 minutes a week just with the dog walking. And finally, of course, your commute, getting off stop early, taking the stairs, and so on and so forth. So thinking about that, I'm just going to walk you through some quick slices of the literature. The first one comes from Japan. In the 90s, Japan required all employers to conduct annual health screens for their employees. And so a large gas company in Japan called Osaka used this to answer a great question. So if people's walk to work was longer, did that reduce their chance of serious health problems? So in this example, high blood pressure. And what they found is under 10-minute walk, no difference. 11 to 20-minute walk, 12% reduction in rates of high blood pressure or hypertension. And over 21-minute walk, a 29% decrease in rates of high blood pressure. So the authors calculated that for every increase of 10 minutes in your walk to work, there was a 12% reduction in the likelihood of getting high blood pressure. The second exhibit is looking at stents. So this is something we commonly do down medicine. So you can see on the left here, the artery's blocked. On the right, a vascular surgeon's gone in and put in a balloon, opened it up, and left a stent to keep it open, which makes great sense. So a German researcher named Rainer Hambrecht looked at this with about 100 cardiac patients. He got half the group to exercise, and by that I mean 20 minutes a day on an exercise bicycle and then once weekly 60-minute aerobics class. And the other half got the high-tech stent and just their sort of normal activity. And after 1 year, 88% of the exercises were event-free compared to 70% of the people that got a stent. So both worked, but I find it sort of incredible that the low tech made a bigger difference. And you have to remember that the stent just fixes one part of the heart. The next way to think about it is the reverse. So what I call sitting disease. We know that being sedentary is bad for your health, but a researcher named Leonard Veerman wanted to quantify this, and he did so down in Australia in a big study they did there. They found, compared with persons who watch no TV, those that spend a lifetime average of 6 hours a day watching TV can expect to live about 5 years left. I mean, that's incredible. But then I think, who watches 6 hours a day of TV? And it turns out the average adult in the USA spends about 5 hours a day watching TV or screens. So I find this fascinating that we never think of the TV as something that's bad for our health, but clearly it's as powerful as many other risk factors for chronic disease. So I'm just going to leave you with, well, I guess two quotes. So one is Jerry Garcia, the singer who is the lead singer for the Grateful Dead, and he said somebody has to do something. It's just incredibly pathetic that has to be us, and I think that's true. That in some ways it has to be us, as Hippocrates said, walking is man's best medicine. And so I'm going to finish by asking you a question. And this may have some personal challenges for you. So, you might be very busy with work or kids or both, and you may be in pain or have other priorities. But my question to you is, can you limit your sitting and sleeping to just 23 and a half hours a day? So something to think about. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was a great video. It's called 23 and a half hours. Feel free to watch that again and again on YouTube. There's a lot of information in there. I think I had to watch that about 10 times to actually feel like I caught everything in there and to realize I didn't hear anything new anymore. And I mean, this is my job, so lots of stuff in there. Feel free to watch it again. More or less, the really simple point I guess we're trying to make is health can be achieved with 20 to 30 minutes per day of exercise and not sitting in your chair for more than 30 minutes at a time without a 2-minute walk. Reduce the amount of long periods of time that you're sitting and get in 20 to 30 minutes per day of exercise. And really with those two things, you should notice really big changes in your health after about 3 to 6 months. Okay? And then ongoing, like, it just amplifies. The longer you keep up those habits for, the better your health is going to be in the long run. All right? So let's take a quick standing break, get up and walk around your house. Maybe go grab a coffee or water. You can pause here if you want to. Quick bathroom break. And then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty about kind of guidelines after this, and then wrap it up after that. Okay, so if you took the break, then welcome back, and if you didn't, then we'll just carry on. So let's talk about some lifestyle approaches to how we can increase our physical activity. So the first half of the presentation is about kind of increasing your motivation, awareness, that kind of stuff. The second half is a little bit more about what are we going to do. So park your car farther away. This was in one of the videos. Once again, if you do this one time, it's probably not going to have a significant impact on your health. But if this is like a policy, like I want you to start to view parking farther away as an opportunity to get in more steps throughout your day. So like West Edmonton Mall around Christmas time is always packed. Park far away and boom, now you have a 5-minute walk in and a 5-minute walk back. So you've added a 10-minute walk to your day, which is great. Stuff like that. Like I think a lot of this is reframing it, reframing physical activity to being a good thing. Like doing the hard way is a positive thing because it's an opportunity to be more active. Stand or walk while you're talking on the phone. So if you have some like those ear pods, like while you're talking with someone, if you can walk outside while you're talking, that would be a great way to go. Walking to the grocery store instead of driving. So if this is a possibility for you, if it's 10 minutes there, 10 minutes back or something like that, then that's a great opportunity to walk instead. Stand up and walk around every 30 minutes. So research says after 30 minutes of sitting, that lipoprotein lipase turns off, and then our triglycerides start to go up. So every 30 minutes of sitting, you should get up and go for a 2-minute walk. Walk to go get your mail. So if you just kind of drive by your box and pick it up on the way home, then walk to go get it more often. And that's just a little thing you can do, and get up and walk around during TV commercials. So every commercial, just get up and walk around. It doesn't even matter. You can walk on the spot, walk over, touch a wall, just literally stand up, walk around, and then sit back down. Can actually have a really big effect. So what other ways can you think of moving throughout the day? So maybe just pause the video and take a moment. Really the most powerful things are going to be the things that you come up with. So if you come up with the answers, then you're more likely to do them. I don't know your lifestyle. I don't know, maybe if you have pain or whatever. So the best advice that I can give is really asking you, what do you think would work for you? So intensity, this is just a brief overview, but basically keep going if you feel increased breathing. So increased breathing is probably the best indicator of activity. Sweaty is not a great indicator. Some people sweat lots, some people don't sweat at all. So, I mean, I wouldn't actually use that one as a super good indicator. And feels a bit challenging. That's good. We'll review that in a couple slides, but basically it should feel a bit hard. If you are out of breath, hard to talk, or have a cramp or a stitch, you're going too hard. Quite often when people start to get back into physical activity, they overdo it. So these would be kind of symptoms of overdoing it. And certainly stop if you feel dizzy, like you're going to throw up, significant breathlessness, or tightness in your chest. So you should never, ever, ever have tightness in chest or pain in tightness in your chest or pain in your chest. This is usually a sign that your heart is not getting enough oxygen. So that is a good reason to go see your doctor and get clearance that you are okay to be exercising. The best ways to monitor intensity, one is the talk test. So if you are out for a walk or when you're exercising, if you can say about 3 to 5 words and then have to take a breath, that is kind of the simplest, easiest way to monitor your intensity, and that's about where you should be. If you can go on and on and on and sing me a song and not have to take a breath, then you should and could probably go a little bit faster. And if you are like, I can't barely talk, kind of like that, like maybe 1 word and then a breath, then that's too hard. So somewhere in the middle, 3 to 5 words, then take a breath. Rate of perceived exertion, we'll go over this on the next slide, but it is what it sounds. It is a rating of how you perceive how hard you're working. So it's a scale of 0 to 10. I don't really love to use heart rate. I think it can be great for athletes and high level work. But if you're talking about just getting started, heart rate will probably cause you more headache than it will help you. So this is that RPE scale. So 1, I'm no exertion at all. I'm watching TV and eating bonbons. So basically sitting on the couch. 3, I'm so comfortable breathing a bit harder. That's a good start of where you want to be. This is my favorite. I can still talk, but I'm slightly breathless. That's about how you should feel, and it should feel somewhat hard. So usually when I'm exercising with people, I'll just go up to them and say, does it feel light, somewhat hard, or hard? And if they say light, then I tell them to go harder. If they say hard, then I tell them to slow down. That's pretty much, a good explanation there. Hard or heavy would be, I can grunt in response to your questions and can only keep this pace up for a short period of time. 9 is extremely hard, I'm probably going to die. And then 10 is I am dead. That would be maximal exertion. So don't go there. Somewhere between 3 and 6 is where you want to be. Habit versus intensity. So as exercise physiologists, we have this, it's called the FIT principle drilled into us. Frequency, intensity, type, and time is what we're looking at. The most important thing you can think of is pick the type of exercise first. Pick something that you enjoy doing that's easy for you to do and realistic. After that, let's think about a frequency and a time that you could do it, how many days per week and how many minutes per session. And then intensity is the last thing we work on. Quite often people want to go high intensity off the bat, and that leads to feelings of it just doesn't feel good. When you are at a high level of exertion, the body generally, unless you're used to those symptoms, it's not a nice feeling. So usually more injuries happen up here and more deterrent from continuing to exercise. So I would much rather you start off at a low intensity and work on actually doing it before you increase your intensity. I would say most people make that error of going too hard off the bat. What are the risks of physical activity? So we have a pre-screening questionnaire. It's called the Get Active questionnaire. Feel free to download it online and go through it yourself and review with your doctor. If you answer yes to any of these questions, you can also look up the Get Active reference document. Get Active questionnaire reference document, readily available online. And this is not intended as medical advice because I don't know who you are. This is a general recommendation and an overview, but I guess medical advice and specific recommendations are on a per person basis. So these are all kind of general recommendations. If you have further questions, please consult your doctor and or get a referral to an exercise specialist. So here's the questionnaire. I'll read through it really briefly. So in the last 6 months, have you experienced any of the following? A diagnosis or treatment of heart disease or stroke, or pain or pressure in your chest during activities of daily living or during physical activity? So if you said yes to that one, definitely talk to your doctor. That's probably the biggest concern one. B, a diagnosis or treatment of high blood pressure, or a resting blood pressure of 160/90 or higher. So basically, if you're taking medication and your blood pressure is under good control, then you don't have a whole lot to worry about. If it is out of control, meaning it's above either 160 as the top number, 90 as the bottom number, if either or are above those numbers, then you should be talking to your doctor, because we want to bring that below those numbers before starting exercise. Dizziness or lightheadedness during physical activity. You should not feel dizzy or lightheaded during physical activity. A lot of people confuse this from, like, if I stand up too fast, then I get lightheaded. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about if you're out for a walk and during the walk you start to feel lightheaded, or when you get up to higher intensities you start to feel lightheaded. Both of those are problems. So please consult your doctor if that's a yes. Shortness of breath at rest. So if you're sitting in your chair and you're doing nothing and you for some reason get short of breath, then that would be talk to your doctor as well. If you climb a flight of stairs then feel out of breath, that is not rest. So don't worry about it. Just practice stairs more often. Loss of consciousness or fainting for any reason. Pretty self-explanatory. We'd want to have that, understand the cause and effect of that before starting exercise. And have you had a concussion? All in the last 6 months. Number 2, do you currently have pain or swelling in any part of your body that affects your ability to be physically active? We work with lots of people who would, almost everyone I see says yes to this question. The main thing is it limiting you? And the main bit of advice, I guess, without knowing you, is generally it's a good idea to do as much as you're able to without it starting to hurt more. So let's say if you have some knee pain, and you're like, when I walk my knee hurts, and I would ask you how long until your knee hurts, or your back, or whatever. And you say, well, I can go about 10 minutes and it's fine, but after that, then it's not good. Then I would recommend that you walk 10 minutes a whole bunch of different times. So you could go for 3 different walks a day of 10-minute walks, for example. As long as your pain doesn't get worse during exercise, then it would be a good thing to do. Has a healthcare provider told you you should avoid or modify certain types of physical activity? Overall, if someone says yes to this, I just say, well, what did they say? And generally, if they are a certified healthcare provider, then, listen to what their guidelines were. And then, do you have any other medical or physical condition? Diabetes, cancer, osteoporosis. All of these different conditions require slightly different kind of tweaks to the exercise program. So if you have one of these, an exercise specialist or your doctor can give you what those specifications would be. Discuss your plan with your doc and healthcare team. Let's say if you have diabetes and you just start exercising a whole bunch but don't tell your doc and healthcare team, then your blood sugars might actually go too low and you'll start to feel symptoms of low blood sugar. Then you need to involve them with all of your changes in physical activity programs. Address orthopedic problems. Lots of people, I guess when something starts to hurt, they just stop doing it. I would much rather that someone address the problem by, seeing physio, seeing chiropractor, strengthening, get to the bottom of why that problem is happening, and then continue with the activity. And then finally, consult an exercise professional. That's what we as exercise specialists are here for. So you can ask your doctor for a referral and come see us. Okay, so let's stand up for this one. So get up, walk around if you can or want to. You can walk on the spot, and we'll keep going. So barriers, what is stopping you? So I really like this picture here. I had a patient who I won't go into why, but she essentially had no abdominal muscles, and she was a very interesting case, and every doctor and physio that I talked to said they'd never seen anyone like her before. But her abdominal muscles were basically atrophied, and she had to have several abdominal surgeries, and it's kind of like they never grew back. So she had to have 3 different abdominal braces on every day just to function. And she had a whole bunch of other limitations, but every time she, like, religiously, she made it to the gym every session that we had during one of our supervised exercise programs. And you can imagine the barriers that she has to go through every day. And what I kind of say, I think that you need to be motivated enough that if when you walk up to the wall, oh, okay, and then try again. Oh no, I can't get through here. Oh, try again. Oh, hey, I can go down through here. Or if you keep on trying, the more times you try it, you'll eventually find something that works. But if you just walk into the wall, stop, and then turn around, I would consider that a very low motivated individual. You need to really want it. You need to make several attempts and efforts. And every time you make an effort, you're going to learn a way not to do it until you find a way that works for you. So basically keep on trying. Motivation is a decision, not a feeling. So you have to decide why you're going to do this and why it's important for you. And if it's important enough, then you're going to keep on trying until you find something that works. So what are some barriers that get in our way? Time is a really common one that people say to us. As for time, I mean, the best, certainly people have very busy days, but some very, very, very busy people, like high-end CEOs and business people, or even like the president or prime minister, they still find time for exercise, and there's people constantly wanting and needing their time. They prioritize it to make something work or make some time for activity because they know it'll make the rest of their day more effective. So benefits can be achieved in as little as really 2 minutes if you're getting up and walking around the house. But 10 minutes is kind of the clinical number to start to have brain changes, blood pressure changes, blood sugar changes. So more frequent 10-minute walks is very good for people with little time. Motivation, kind of really learn more. The best thing we can feed to someone with low motivation is more information until you have a little light bulb that kind of pops up and you're like, okay, I've decided this is what I'm going to do. My example usually that I used to work in cardiac rehab, and unfortunately a lot of people's motivation for becoming more active is a heart attack. And once they have a heart attack, they stop smoking. They're like, okay, I get it, I'll take this seriously now. They reduce their workload so that they can make time for exercise, and they actually start to make real changes. Weather, if it's very cold outside, if it's raining, there are always other options is the thing. So if you're a low motivated individual, if it's rainy or windy outside, you're like, oh, I can't go today. And the next day, maybe it's cloudy. Oh, I can't go. I would say you're pretty low on the motivation scale. Somebody who's highly motivated, weather won't stop them. You can dress for weather if it's cold outside. If it's icy, then there are ice cleats that you can buy. Really, if it matters enough to you, you should be able to overcome almost any regular weather that we have. Pain, back to my couple slides ago, seek out help to treat your pain. Oftentimes, a good treatment for some type of physical pain is exercise. You just need to do the right type of exercise. So, I mean, realistically, maybe you're doing exercise in order to help treat your pain, and as a side effect, it's helping with diabetes, blood pressure, triglycerides, cholesterol, all that other stuff as well. But more or less, the story on pain is do as much as you're able to do before it starts to hurt worse, and then stop. For almost any pain, inactivity is what most people do, but it actually ends up making the condition worse in the long run. If you don't have any equipment, there's lots of resources for ways for people to be active without any equipment. It could be indoor walking videos. If you have a computer, which I assume you do because you're watching this, there are indoor walking videos that you could watch. There's body weight exercises that you could do. There's walking outside, going for a bike ride if you have a bike. There's lots of other stuff that you could end up doing, or going to a gym potentially. Pedometers, I'll go over this pretty quickly, but pedometers are a great measure of, if you remember back to that earlier slide of Megan and Bob, Bob got 3,500 steps in a day, Megan got 20,000 steps. What we're trying to measure with pedometers is how much non-exercise activity are you getting in a day. So this is, how often did you get up from your desk? Did you go to the bathroom? Did you walk to your car? Did you walk to go get lunch? All these little things are what adds up to a higher amount. So the first step in getting a pedometer is establishing a baseline. So just get one and become aware of how either active or inactive you are. And that might be motivation right there. If you throw a pedometer on and you're getting 2,000 steps a day, maybe that's a bit of a wake-up call for you that you're not as active as you thought you were. So if you have an iPhone, under the Apple Health, it's like a white icon with a red heart. It might actually already be tracking your steps. This would be the same for any phone. I think Samsung's phones track on the app called S Health. And otherwise there are apps you can download. The only problem with the phone version is it basically has to be in your pocket all day. If it's not in your pocket for the majority of the day, then it's going to give us not very useful data. Secondly, you can get an Apple Watch or a Garmin or a Fitbit, any of those, or even there are cheaper versions as well. Any of those tools that goes around your wrist and leave it on your wrist all day long, that will track how many steps you get in a day. So, or you can get the ones that attach to your hip, and those you can get for about $10, I think at Walmart or a couple other places. So general guideline, if you're getting less than 5,000 steps a day, that basically tells me you're spending the majority of your day sitting. You would probably fall into that 15 hours a day example that I talked about earlier. You're spending the majority of your day sitting. 5,000 to 7,500 steps would mean you are lightly active, so that's okay. Above 7,500, I would say, is enough to get health benefits. So this is probably your main target, is at least 7,500 to 8,000 steps. I'm pretty happy with that. And if you're above 10,000, then anywhere above there, you rock. That's awesome. Keep up the good work. If you're getting more than 10,000, then I would consider you an active individual. So setting SMART goals. Generally, we want to set something that's specific. So it's usually good, I would say, to set a goal for about a week. It could be a day or a week. I wouldn't go any longer than that. And then frequency and how much time you're going to do it, and then the type of exercise you're going to do. So I will give you a tool on the next slide to help you set one of these goals. Measurable, how are you going to track whatever your goal is? Achievable, if it's possible for you. So most often when people are really motivated, they try and set a goal that is kind of outside their reach. I would much rather establish what is your baseline now and increase it or improve it by 10%. That's about the amount. So, if you're getting 3,000 steps a day right now, a lot of people hear 10,000 and they're like, oh, I should get 10,000 steps a day. So they try and go and get 10,000. They're probably going to do well with that for about 2.5 days and then stop, either because their knee starts hurting or back starts hurting, or they just find it unsustainable and then completely get rid of the habit. Where I would support them to be getting like 3,400, 3,500 steps a day. That's what I would want, and that over a longer period of time. Once that feels comfortable, then go up to 4,000 steps a day. Once that feels comfortable, go up to 4,500 steps a day and work on like that. Rewarding, you got to know what's in it for you. It's good to write this down, put it on the wall, make it very clear and apparent what's in it for you, and time frame. When are you going to get this done? So that was what I said a little too early, but I usually say within a week, a day to a couple of days to a week is a good time frame to review your goals again. So how to maintain a physical activity program. So I came across this app, it's called Go Get Fit. And this is a fantastic app for both healthcare providers as well as people who are wanting to increase their activity levels. So it's an activity scheduling app with built-in accountability. So the idea behind it is, for me, for example, I send an email out to my patient who wants to try this. They get the email, and then I'm attached as their healthcare provider. So if you happen to know me from this presentation, you can ask that I send you the link, and therefore I will be your healthcare provider. You will be accountable to me. Otherwise, if you just download the app and log in and create an account, somebody on the other side of it, it may not be someone you know, but they're going to send you weekly kind of check-ins based on how you did last week. So the idea behind the app is we're not trying to create a habit of exercise, we're trying to create a habit of scheduling. So really what this app is all about is getting you to schedule your physical activity. And I find that when I schedule what I'm going to do ahead of time, I am so much more likely to do it. The analogy I normally give people is if you're walking through the grocery store, you see an old friend, and the old friend says, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. How are the kids? How's work? And then they're in a hurry, so they're like, man, we have lots to talk about, but I got to run. Do you want to go for coffee sometime? And you're like, yeah, I'd love to. And they're like, okay, we'll be in touch. Let's be in touch. We'll go for coffee sometime. Do you ever actually go for coffee? Like, no. If you leave that conversation with, what are you doing on Saturday at 1 o'clock? And they're like, oh, I can't do 1, but I can do 3. Then, okay, Saturday at 3, I'll see you at the coffee shop down the street. Then you're way more likely to actually meet up when you schedule a time. So that goes for exercise, as if you leave this with just, oh, I'll do it sometime, and like this app forces you, well, what time is that? How long are you going to do it for? When are you going to do it? Before that, it asks you, what's your motivation? So there's 100 different behavior change tools built into this app. So I'd highly advise looking into it and get it, and just give it a try and see. Give it a try for a week. But if you're looking to increase kind of your exercise activity, this app is really good for it. So summary, if you put in the effort to gain the benefits now rather than later, it's easier to prevent a disease than it is to manage one. Benefits can be achieved in as little as 10 minutes at a time. Sitting wrecks your body, stand more. So let's take this opportunity, let's stand up right now and shake it off for the last couple points. People don't just have time for activity, they make time for activity. So this is to do with the scheduling it in. I want you to schedule it into your day. And then finally, start slow. Little improvements. Are you doing a little bit more today than you did the day or week before? That's what we're looking for. So my name is Kevin, and thank you for watching Active Living with the Edmonton Zone. Feel free to reach out to your family doctor for a referral to an exercise specialist if you feel like it would be helpful. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.